Hello friends! A while back, I made a video sharing with you a bunch of well-designed interiors that I was really into at the moment. And I was thinking it might be fun to do another one. Now this time around, I have found some home tour videos for us to look at, and I just think that these are great, unique, interesting spaces that have some really valuable insights to offer us. So let's discuss them. Okay, so here we have the home of textile designer Kathy Nordstrom in Stockholm. The house was built in 1925, and this home tour was featured on Homeworthy. Okay, so first of all, we have this front hall, and she acknowledges that there is not a lot of natural light in this space, and I like that she's just embraced that. She's kept it, dark and warm and cozy, and I think it's really smart to just embrace what you have in the space rather than trying to fight it. I really like the whole mix of styles and patterns and textures that are happening here. So she's got several different textiles. There's different fabrics, there's the rug. They're all quite different, but they have a certain continuity in color, and I think that helps them work together really nicely. She's got a nice mix of styles. She's got like a more traditional mirror and chest of drawers. Then she's got the mid-century chairs, but again, there's the warm wood element tying everything together. I also wanted to mention the floor. So she said that this is a sort of very traditional Swedish stone floor, but I think the style of this is very comparable to what a lot of people would have in their homes if they've just got, a very basic floor tile. And maybe you've grown a little tired of it. It's maybe not the most exciting or unique flooring option, but I think this is a great example of how you can work with it. She's brought so many other really interesting and unique elements into the space that the floor just makes sort of a nice neutral backdrop for it all, and I think it has all come together really nicely. Moving on to the living and dining rooms, and these spaces have been painted in a really soft, warm, beigey white, which again, I think is a really nice choice. A little bit lighter and brighter, but still feels really warm. I think the window coverings are really interesting in here. She's got drapes with a top valance, and it's not a look that you necessarily see all that much anymore. I think it has a certain formality to it, but in contrast to those more formal window coverings, the pieces in this space do not feel formal. There's a really sort of natural, kind of collected over time kind of feel to what she's brought into this room. It makes it feel really comfortable and lived in and like the family home that it is. So she says that she does not like overly styled bookshelves, and you can tell that these bookcases in her dining room are not overly styled. I really like that. These are just functional. You can tell that they're well used. She also has this collection of Swedish ceramics, and I just think that these are really lovely and they look great on these shelves without looking too precious or too contrived. And then we have this red cupboard in the corner. This is a piece that she had custom made. I love this. I love the color. I love the style. And I think a big cabinet like this is such a great addition to a space, especially in a family home where storage can be an issue. You could fit so much stuff into a cupboard like this. The kitchen she did redesign, and she said that she wanted a kitchen that couldn't easily be defined as being from any particular era. And I think she really has achieved a timeless look here. So there is a certain traditional quality to it that feels very appropriate for a house built in 1925, but it functions the way it needs to for a modern family. A couple of details in this kitchen that I really love are the painted interiors on the upper cabinets. They've been painted this rusty red. I think that's really unique. I really like how that came together. And The wall sconce. So rather than having a pendant light over her dining table, she has this wall sconce. So if you don't have a pendant or you don't want an overhead light, I think this is a really interesting alternative. So here's the primary bedroom, which again just feels really warm and cozy. I love her use of pattern. I also really like this chest of drawers. So she said they had this lacquered in this green. And, I think people often lately want to criticize painting old pieces of furniture. And I think this is a great example of how it actually can work. You can pick a really bold color and otherwise just keep it really simple, and it can have a lot of impact in a space. And she also points out a lot of different sentimental items, family heirlooms that she has in this room, and I think that of course is just a really lovely touch. So overall, this house I think is just a really warm, inviting, lovely family home. Our next tour is the home of Erica Nicole Jefferson, and this is a new build townhome in Dallas-Fort Worth, which was again featured on Homeworthy. Okay, so first up, her entryway. Few things she's done here that I think are really interesting. Now, the vinyl collection, she has her vinyl stored on this vintage newspaper magazine rack, and I'm sure many of you have seen these around. I don't think I've ever seen a red one before, and I've never seen anybody store their vinyl on it before. I think that this is really interesting. Now, Adrienne is probably going to tell me that she shouldn't be storing her vinyl flat, stacked on top of each other like this, but that aside, I think it looks really cool. Now, I also like that she's got a real mix of pieces happening in this space. So she's got some vintage, she's got some new. This chair is IKEA. I love the mix of high and low, vintage and new, and the bold pop of yellow on this chair I think is really fun. She also has a pop of yellow on her front door. Now, as I mentioned in the beginning, this home is a new build, and we all know new construction, it can be really challenging to add character to a space like that. And I think painting the inside of her door yellow like this was a really clever idea. Okay, moving on to her living room. And I have to say, my favorite part of this space is the gallery wall. I mean, I think we all know that I love a good gallery wall, and this is a really good one. I love how expansive it is. I love the variety. It's really eclectic. It's fun. It's colorful. I like the way she's incorporated some books into it, so it's not all just art. Really, really fun and really well done. So another thing that I really like and wanted to mention about this townhouse is the way that she has divided up the space. Now, the layout of this townhouse, very typical. I'm sure there are a lot of people out there who can relate, who have new build townhomes that are a very open floor plan, very similar to this. And I think a lot of the times you're going to see people place a dining table beside the kitchen and then the living space at the front of the house. And she hasn't done that. She's got her living space in the middle, and she has a dining space up at the front by the window. And it works. And I think one of the reasons that this works is that rather than a regular dining table, she's gone with a bar height table. And I think having that taller table and then having stools rather than regular dining chairs, I think it just makes it feel a little more casual and relaxed. So it doesn't feel like necessarily a separate dining space. I think it sort of just ties in with the rest of the living space, especially if you're entertaining. I think people will sit at that table, people will, easily flow throughout the space, and it all sort of works together really nicely rather than feeling like everything is separate and defined. So I think that was a really clever idea. If you happen to catch last week's video about dopamine decor, you might remember that I suggested bringing in weird and whimsical items to add some fun to your space. And Erica's home has so many great examples of how to do this. She has some really fun, quirky pieces in her home that just add so much whimsy and character and humor. So if you're looking for some ideas of how to bring some weird and unusual pieces into your space, I would definitely check out her home tour in more detail. Okay, now looking at her kitchen, I think this is a very typical builder grade kitchen. You've got white cabinets, you've got a tile backsplash that I'm sure we have all seen before. But what she has done here to really break away from that typical builder grade look is switching up her countertops. Now, she said this is just temporary. This is just a peel and stick product that she has applied to the top of her countertops until she decides whether or not she wants to commit to this, but I would commit to it. I think the green is really fun, and I think this is a really unique, unexpected way of updating a builder kitchen. You know, you might think to change your cabinet color, you might think to change up the backsplash, but I'm not sure a lot of people would think of going with like a bold green countertop, and I really like what she's done here. Some of you may already be familiar with Rita Koenig. I became familiar with her back in the day when she was an editor at Domino magazine, and this is a home tour of her London house that was featured on House and Garden UK. Here we have her living room, and the room itself is quite traditional. You have these beautiful moldings and chair rail and the fireplace, but there's a real eclectic mix of styles happening within it. So Rita Koenig does design a lot of prints. She does fabrics, she does wallpapers. She's used a lot of them in her home, and she really is such a pro at combining pattern. There's such an interesting mix happening in this space, just really unexpected combinations. I especially love this sofa. I love the zebra print. I love the red pillow and the way it contrasts that print. And I think that this just gives a real edge to the space that keeps it from feeling overly traditional or at all stuffy. I also really love what she's done with art in this room. I think the use of these brighter colors is a really interesting contrast against the brown of the wall. They just feel really cool and edgy and unexpected in such a traditional space, and I just really like how she's done this. So one other detail I wanted to mention in this room is this sort of transom that she has above this doorway, and these are mirrored panels, and this was really clever. It bounces light around the room, it helps to draw your eye upwards, it just adds a sense of openness to the space. Really, really smart little detail to have added. So moving on to her kitchen. Now, she designed this kitchen in collaboration with Plain English, the renowned cupboard makers. And she actually created this deep purple cabinet color with them. I think this is really beautiful, really unique. The countertops and the backsplash are this marble, and the veining of the marble ties in really well with the cabinet color. Now, this is a look that, of course, we are seeing a lot of right now, these really boldly patterned marble counters and backsplashes. But what I think she's done to really set this kitchen apart is to introduce this wallpaper. So rather than just letting the marble stand on its own and be the main pattern in the space, she's brought in this printed wallpaper. And it might, for some people, feel like a little much, but it does work. And I think it works because the colors do tie in together so well. I also really like these little pops of green that she's added. So in the stools and the pendant lights, I think that's really unique. I think it's really unexpected, and it adds a bit of edge to the space. Here we have the primary bedroom, and it is lovely. It is probably, I would say, sort of the most traditional space in the house, especially with that 4-poster bed. It's maybe a little more traditional than I typically like, but very well executed. One detail that I do particularly like is that blue lamp. I like the style, the scale, and I like the blue against all of the warm neutrals in the space. I think that's a really lovely combination. So to end this house tour, I want to share with you what Rita has to say about taste.
Bad taste sounds so much more fun than good taste, doesn't it? I think there's something very liberating about bad taste. Good taste gets put into quite a safe box. You need a bit of ugly to jar the good taste. And I do find that when I'm doing rems and it's all like all goes together so nicely and is all feeling a bit prissy and pleased with itself. The zebra sofa, you know, you've got to shove something in that's just gonna be a bit rude, but it's getting also your child's painted rock gift in the mix. It's part of your life. You know, you can't just chuck everything out, I don't think. And I definitely think that's where the magic is in rooms.
I mean, I don't know how to say it any better than that. Okay, I think I have left the best for last. At least this home is my favorite of these home tours. This is Heidi Gardner's mid-century modern house in Kansas City as featured on Architectural Digest. Here is her living room, and I am just so happy to see that they have maintained so much of the original mid-century character of this house. Now, one thing that I think is kind of interesting, I wanted to point out, the wood ceilings and beams have been painted white, but the walls are wood paneling. And I think this is kind of the opposite of what we often see done when mid-century houses are renovated. Oftentimes it's the beams and the ceiling that remain wood and the walls end up being white. And I don't think one is better than the other. They're both great options. I just think this one is maybe a little more unexpected and just not as common. Now, regarding the furniture selections in this space, this sofa, pretty iconic. I'm sure you've seen it in other homes. I do like it in this space. I think it works well here. And I really like the coffee tables. I really like the contrast of that polished chrome against the warmth of the wood paneling on the walls. I think that that juxtaposition is really cool. So here we have her sitting room, original fireplace, super happy to see that. I think there's some really nice furniture selections happening here. I like the rug, I like the coffee table. I think that's a nice little injection of some warm color into the space. And then this cabinet, I think this is gorgeous. Love this. Now, one thing that she doesn't really mention in the tour is her floors. They look to be a terrazzo. My guess is that these are new, but I think that these were a great choice. As we know, terrazzo was a very popular flooring choice in mid-century modern homes. So to have gone with this, I think just feels really authentic to the era of the house. So the kitchen has been fully renovated, but again, I do appreciate that what they've done here does feel appropriate to the era of the house. Now, there's a lot of great attention to detail in this space. This sort of grid pattern you see up at the top is concealing HVAC, so I think that is really, really clever. And then they've done some really nice little things with the marble countertops. There's this little edge detail down the side, and I think you could have had a really awkward sort of situation there where two pieces of wood paneling were meeting each other, and this just hides that seam in such a beautiful way. I really like how they've done that. But my favorite thing in this kitchen is this range hood. I love this. This is so fun. It's bold. It provides this great element of contrast against all of the marble and warm woods. Such a great detail. I love, love, love this. So here's her guest bath. And again, just really great attention to detail in this space. I love what they have done with the mirror. So you have all these circular cutouts in the vanity mirror, and then that circular motif has been repeated in these amber vanity lights. And they've repeated the circular motif again in the glass block, which is just, I think, a really fresh, fun take on a classic glass block wall. So cool, so well done, a really great space. So here we have Heidi's bedroom, and I mean, the whole space has been really well designed. It's lovely, but a couple of things I wanted to point out. So she's got this little sitting area. It is a vintage sofa that they reupholstered in this pink, and I like that they've brought this soft little pop of color into the space. And I also really like the way that the piece of art has been displayed on the easel. It's sort of a way to fill some empty floor space. It also helps to sort of define that sitting area as a separate space from the rest of the room. And you don't see that done very often. I just think having art on an easel is a really clever way of achieving that. Yeah, gorgeous, gorgeous house that I would live in a heartbeat. Well guys, that concludes the final house tour, which means we've reached the conclusion of this video. I don't know how long this thing's gonna end up being. I feel like I talked a lot. Hopefully what I had to say was of interest to you. I appreciate you sticking around till the end. Thank you so, so much for watching. I hope we see you again at the next one, and bye for now.